the Dedrique Taylor Coaches Show. I'm your host, Brandon Marcus, joined by the head coach of Cal State Fullerton men's basketball, Dedrique Taylor, joining us live from Viva Las Vegas. Dedrique, what's up, man?
Not much. Just trying to get situated, trying to get ready for tomorrow at 6 o'clock. We play Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and you know what all goes into that. Obviously, we didn't play them at all this year, and so we're trying to get ready for them on a short notice, so to speak. So it's for me, it's crazy. I don't know if it's as crazy for my team, but obviously, I want them to come out and play well. So trying to manage all that is it seems a bit daunting.
We'll get into the game itself. We'll talk a little bit about this past weekend, talk about the tournament in Vegas. But
Sure.
first, what hotel are you at? I mean, it looks kind of nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they took care of us. I mean, the Delano, which is a part of the Mandalay Bay or just behind Mandalay Bay, and obviously it's super nice here, and it has a little bit, or not a little bit, but a lot of the tournament feel. You know, it's definitely different than the previous 6 years or 7 years going to the pond and or the Honda Center, they call it, going there and participating in the tournament. This actually has a true feeling, especially now that, you know, we've gone through everything that we've gone through this year, and you know, getting out here and getting checked in and the walkthroughs and having the practices. It just gives it more of a tournament vibe and more of a tournament feel. But obviously there's also the alternative. You know, if you don't do things the right way and you lose, take you behind home.
Yeah, there's always been this kind of behind the scenes chatter about wanting to get this thing to Vegas and have more people there, obviously, when they're actually fans. The pond, the Honda Center, you got me saying the pond.
Yeah.
The Honda Center, it's this massive venue, and you have all these people that aren't filling seats. I mean, it's no slight against the Big West, but I mean, when you have the lower bowl like half filled and like even less for the women's games, then it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't look good. You have the entire upper area that's empty. You go to these smaller arenas in Vegas, and it's just way better. And all the other big conferences are there. So it's nice to actually have it in that one spot. And there are other conferences that have their games there this weekend. So it must be kind of cool to see these different schools that are there to play.
Yeah, it has the, you know, the tournament vibe and the tournament feel. You know, we're not the only team or the only conference in this hotel. Our women are across the way at Mandalay Bay, and we're at the Delano, but we're obviously not the only team here in this hotel. I think BYU's here also. Gonzaga, obviously, we talked about them. They're here, and so it definitely has that tournament vibe. Obviously, we won't have a fan base inside the arena, but as you said, it is a smaller venue. It's not as ginormous. It's not as you don't have to do much to fulfill the environment, so to speak. You know, it'll be nice and quaint, and hopefully you'll get both teams' best basketball. I thought that was always a drawback in playing in the Honda Center. The shooting is not the same as it is during the conference. Statistically, you look at the numbers and they don't match up, and so you don't get the real teams on the floor, or at least the ones that you saw during the course of the year. And so, you know, being in the Honda Center obviously has some good stuff. You know, it's right down the road from us, and it's easy to get to and all that stuff. But again, you know, we're here with all the other big conferences as well, with the Pac-12, all of the West Coast conferences. I think, with the exception of the Big Sky, are here in Las Vegas. I think at this event, this venue that we'll play at tomorrow, I think the Pac-12 women just utilized the same venue, and so they finished yesterday, and then by Tuesday or tomorrow, you know, it'll be a Big West venue, and they'll set it up, and so it'll be a live atmosphere, I think, even without people in the stands.
Yeah, that's cool. And what you're referencing, by the way, when you talk about the Honda Center and the pad shooting, is that the depth is just really messed up when you're at the Honda Center. It's a hockey arena that's not meant really to be a basketball arena, but it's made into a basketball arena. And you compare that to the arena you're talking about where you guys are actually going to be, and that's meant to have basketball there. So it won't be as bad. Before we get into all the stuff we're going to talk about, take me through what you guys have gone through so far. So you arrived at the hotel And I know you guys had to test before you even got to Vegas.
Yeah.
It was 3 times you had to test before you left for Vegas.
Yeah.
And all those obviously came back negative. So once you guys drove to Vegas, you got out of the bus, what's the process been like over the last 24 hours?
It's been pretty easy for the most part. We did test before we got on the bus to come out to Vegas, and then we drove here and we got all checked in, and that part of it I think was really easy. There were some other teams, checking in. Like I mentioned, Gonzaga came shortly after us. I think Northridge was already here. I think Long Beach was already here. So we saw those guys in the lobby. We saw obviously Cal Poly and Coach Smith and his group. So that part of it is unique. That you run into teams that you're going to compete against. But in the same token, we're all here for the same reason and just trying to win and trying to advance. And so we didn't do much last night. We ate. I think we watched film. But this morning we let the guys sleep in. We had breakfast about 9:15, and then we started the first round of testing. So we had to go down and basically download these apps on each person's phone and check into the testing site. Once we were in there, they kind of separated us in terms of the seating. We could still see each other, but then we had to fill out some paperwork, and then everybody tested, and they held us in the area for us to receive the results. And so everybody went. We received the results, and we were all negative, and so we went on with our day, and we let the guys kind of hang out. We reconvened about 1:45 for film and for walkthrough. Then we practiced on 2:30 at 2:30. They have 2 practice courts set up. We didn't practice in the venue. They have 2 practice courts set up for us in our own walkthrough room, so to speak. And so it was cool. It was more reminiscent, like I said, of a tournament type of atmosphere. Even though we can't have people, obviously, it's somewhat of a bubble. It's not really a true bubble because there's all kind of people walking around, just normal people that are not associated with the tournament and so on and so forth, people that are here, in Vegas, experience in Vegas and all that stuff. And so we ran into a girl on the elevator last night it was her 21st birthday, and she was in Las Vegas.
What are you doing?
She was paying the piper. She was being held up by 2 of her friends. And I felt bad for her just simply because she, I know what she was going through. Not by experience that I know she was going through that, but I knew what she was going through.
God, 21 years old. She's like, you know what? Screw the pandemic. I'm going to Vegas still.
She got after it.
I'm going to go ahead. What were you saying?
It was probably about 9 or 10 o'clock, and she had already got KO'd.
Oh my God. All right. Normally we do the D Taylor Coaches Show at gmail.com. Our fans write in and ask questions, and we go to the mailbag. I'm going to sprinkle them out sprinkle them in throughout the show though, because one of them actually pertains to what we're talking about. It's from Jordan Mendoza. He said, "Hey coach, I wanted to ask what Vegas is like during a pandemic, and in general, how different road trips have been this year compared to normally." So let's touch on that first part. What is Vegas like right now during this pandemic?
Vegas right now is in the pandemic is almost it's there's hardly anybody. There's more people here than I think you would probably imagine in a pandemic setting, but it's still not anyone, not where it normally is, especially during this time. It's crawling with people, but it's like, very rarely or very few people here. Like for instance, we just walked from the film room back to our room, and like the restaurants and all those things, everything was closed already. And it was probably 7:30 when we were coming back up. So it's basically a skeleton of itself. There's not a lot of people here, but there are still some people here who are, doing whatever, partaking in Vegas. The tables and things are still open and all of that stuff. So it's a little bit different to be here because it's not typically Vegas. But I think also that's probably a good thing, from a distraction standpoint. It allows the guys to focus on what they need to focus on and what they're here for and what they're about. And, hopefully we can maintain that going into tomorrow. But
are there restrictions in terms of going out and walking the strip and stuff like that?
I don't necessarily, I would imagine there probably are. We have a pretty decent group. If our staff did share that with those guys, they did it in my absence. I wasn't around when they did that. And I think one thing that's normally different, like when we stayed in San Diego, I was on a completely different floor than our guys. I was on like the 10th or 11th floor, and our guys were on the 5th floor. So I wasn't anywhere near them. Whereas now we all have our own wing. Like I'm at the end, and everybody has their rooms, and they're in this wing. So I could step outside my room and pretty much see them or see somebody in the hallway, which is rare or unique, I should say. We normally have different floors or stay on different floors because normally they don't want to see me and I don't want to see them.
Is it just your team on this specific floor?
In this particular wing, it's just our team, but there are two other wings on this floor that have, the general public. They're staying. I don't think there are any other teams in other wings on this particular floor.
Interesting. I was always curious how they're going to do that because, especially during the pandemic, you have some people that are not wearing masks, some people that are, and so trying to mingle those people who are there in Vegas to have a good time versus you guys who are there to compete would be difficult. But you guys are all wearing a mask when you guys leave your room, I'm assuming.
And I think I can feel a different or see visibly like there's a lot more security than probably normal. And when you're in the public space, like downstairs, and you're going to and fro, they're asking everybody to be in a mask. So everyone is supposed to be in a mask, and everyone that I've seen is in some type of mask. And then obviously getting up to the rooms, I think just from a security standpoint, they're asking everybody to show their room key, or they're taking extra measures to try and protect us from people coming up and doing all the crazy stuff.
So you mentioned that there were practice courts and you guys didn't actually go to the real court. So you're saying that there are like actual other courts that are in your guys' hotel?
Yeah. So today, like in the conference room, they cordoned it off, and the hotels are massive, obviously, as you know, in Vegas, and they're built for conventions. So this particular hotel has cordoned off, a relatively big space, and they put down, I think it's the Las Vegas WNBA team's court.
Oh, the Aces. That's cool.
Yeah, the Aces. They laid it down, and obviously it's the same baskets and those things. And then we didn't obviously go into the other practice facility, but that has a court that's laid down as well. And it's kind of almost in a convention in a big room. And it's kind of enclosed, with different partitions. And so you can't see what's going on, or you can't really hear what's going on. But yeah, it's a little bit odd. But if you saw any of the NBA bubble, their practice courts, what a lot of the NBA teams were doing was they were bringing their own practice courts and they were putting them down. And I think there was something like 12 or 13 different courts within the area down there at the bubble. And so they've tried to mimic that on a much, much, much smaller scale. It's only 2 courts. And then tomorrow, I believe they're allowing some of the teams to have shoot-arounds, or if not all of the teams, they're allowing us to have shoot-around within the venue that we're playing in tomorrow. But we have to share that venue. The women and us are splitting the same venue.
Interesting. Okay, I was curious about that because I believe tomorrow is the 7-10 and 8-9 for you guys, and then there's also the 8-9 for the women. So you guys, obviously, your women are playing tomorrow, and you guys are playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Quickly, let's go back to the weekend that just was. We'll touch on it really briefly.
Yeah.
Upset about losing both games. Don't care because I'm sure you just wanted to get out of there healthy. Assuming you guys did get out of there healthy.
Yeah, we did. We made it out. We made it out safely, and I, quite frankly, I don't think we played hard enough to get hurt. Disappointed in the way we represented ourselves, and I don't think we put our best foot forward. And credit to UC San Diego in terms of them going and taking care of business and doing what they do, which is shoot threes. They shot threes and they made them. Our group, we for whatever reason, we didn't buy into the game plan and executed defensively. Offensively is not a problem for this group. We can score the basketball and shoot it at a high clip. But San Diego's threes versus our twos, it became too much for us. And they gave us a lot of problems just simply because they got themselves in a good rhythm early and they rode that rhythm all the way through the weekend. I won't even say all the way through the first game. They rode it all the way through the weekend. I mean, looking at their numbers from the first time we played them to the next night, I mean, there were 5 guys in double figures. I think they only played 7 guys and all of them scored. I think 4 of them scored 18 or 19 or more points. Their point guard, he had 14 assists in one game. 14 assists in one game. And you know how I am in terms of assist guys. I think he was 8 shy of the record after that Friday night's game. And then obviously he got the record on Saturday's game. And so you applaud him for doing what he does. But I am disappointed and was disappointed in our mindset, the way we approach those 2 games. No, they don't count. No, they don't count for various reasons, but it's an opportunity for us to try to get into a rhythm. We've played, I said this last week, we played more like a football schedule than we actually have played a basketball schedule. So we use those, or we're trying to use those opportunities to get on the floor and get in some type of rhythm, offensively and defensively. And we weren't in sync either end of the floor, and we paid for it. UC San Diego beat our behind, and they should have. They did what they were supposed to.
So I'm thinking now as we record this that we're recording it Monday night. You guys are going to play on Tuesday night. So I'm not quite sure when Rob's going to release this, because obviously this is the first time we actually have an episode where the timing actually kind of matters.
Yeah.
And it's you guys play on Tuesday, so it's possible this is released after you guys play. We'll obviously figure that one out. But sure. So we'll talk a little bit about Cal Poly. But I do want to touch first of all on something that's not going to be timely and something that just happened today, but is going to still be good to chat about, obviously, in a couple of days. And that is Trey Maddox. And getting Big West second team. What does that mean for him, and what does it mean for your program?
I mean, I think it speaks volumes for him personally, but it speaks to our mantra of develop you. He came here with an experience, a level of experience under his belt, and wanted to do some things that would impact our program. And I think, him being all conference second team is a reward for that. He's a guy that we depend on, we rely on, especially, under the current circumstances with us being down some guys and being depleted and so on and so forth. He still found a way to be productive and be pretty consistent. And so we tip our hat to him and his effort and his attention to detail, and obviously his teammates also, for helping him get where he is. And I think if you ask him, he couldn't have done it and would not have done it had it not been for his teammates. And so, we're obviously really excited for him, and we applaud him. But I was just telling one of our assistants, I do kind of get a little bit cynical maybe this time of year because you have all these conversations in recruiting, or you have all these conversations throughout the course of the year. Hey, you want to know what all conference looks like? Well, here are the stats from the last 5 years, and those things should govern you. You're capable of those things, and those things should govern you. But somehow, some way, we always get lost in the shuffle, and we lose sight of what those stats are. And so, in my opinion, it's, we're always in the conversation. Like, we had 2 or 3 guys. Dante Maddox, was up for freshman of the year, and they gave it to the Irvine guy, and he won a lot of games. I think we had Josh Hall. He's up for Hustle Player of the Year, and they gave it to Dom Pickens, who, they won a lot of games. And so you look at their numbers statistically, and you encourage our guys to, hey, govern yourself by these numbers, and these opportunities will present themselves. And so when you don't do that and you fall short, you look back on those kinds of conversations, and you kind of kick yourself in the butt because you have an opportunity to do that. But then, I heard or talked to Dante a little bit in regards to him, his situation. And I think it was something that he was gunning for, but I think also, he knows what he needs to do moving forward. And so hopefully we can use that as a learning experience and be better for it, continue to develop.
So you think what you're saying is more so that these guys had a chance to get these awards, but because you guys performed poorly, you're saying that if we would have performed better during the regular season, then maybe these guys would have had the opportunity to get those awards. Is that correctly?
I think if we would have been a little more consistent, poorly is a strong word, simply because of, we had no rhythm. We played 5 weekends in a row, and then all of a sudden we don't play the whole month of February. And then all of a sudden we play, 2 games here and take a week off, and then we play 2 games there. And so, I think that's harder to accomplish, under the current circumstances. But, you have to look at those numbers and say, if you do these things and you do them consistently, it is what it is. Let's talk about Davis, for instance. Davis played way less games than us. I think they only played 6 games total, maybe 8. and they are like third place team because they took advantage of those 8 opportunities, whatever they are. And so we had 12 or we had 14. Let's take advantage of those opportunities and then let whatever happens happen. But don't look back on these opportunities and say, man, I wish I could have. Man, I wish I should have. Leave it all out there because you don't know if you're going to get those opportunities, the opportunity back. Like, for instance, before we got on the bus, again, I say for instance, but we told our team, I said, this time last year, we were getting ready to participate in the tournament. And then all of a sudden, the day of the game, there's no tournament. There's nothing can be done about that. So don't wait thinking that, hey, we can get through this and we're going to get the next opportunity, because as we saw last year, firsthand, that opportunity could never come.
So it's capitalize on the one game that you have and capitalize on what's in front of you and don't worry about the future, because you can only control what you have right now. And I'm sure that's what you'll be saying to your guys tomorrow is that, hey, we got this one game. Don't be worrying about Saturday. Let's take this one game at a time. It's always been your tournament mantra. Take it one game at a time and worry about the next thing later. I mean, right now, first, it's Cal Poly and defeating Cal Poly. That's got to be the focus.
No doubt. You know, and to make matters, I don't know if you want to call it worse, but we created these shirts. And on one of the shirts, we put this saying, and it's from George Raveling, Coach Raveling. And it says the contest is always you versus you. It's never really about the other team. They just happen to be there and be in the way. But if you give your best and do your best, no matter what the situation is, no matter the outcome, you'll like the results. I guarantee you. I put money on that. If you are doing your best, you'll like the outcome and you'll appreciate it. And you know, if those opportunities come or they don't come, just take advantage of it, and you will like, again, the outcome.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Who would have thought? I mean, when you say it like that, a year ago, you guys were getting ready to play in the tournament, and next thing you knew, there was no tournament. It's bonkers. It really is bonkers. When I look back, and I was at Long Beach at the Pyramid for a game on Wednesday, thinking that it was the Big West quarterfinal, and Irvine ended up losing, but still, there's no fans. You have no idea what's going on. Like, nobody's wearing a mask, obviously, at this point. You're just washing your hands like a little bit. You don't know what's going on. It's crazy. I want to get into the mailbag. And once again, dtaylorcoachesshow@gmail.com. It's dtaylorcoachesshow@gmail.com. And if you haven't been listening to the podcast, and this is your first time, we will be doing this, obviously, each week, even after the season ends. So please do continue to subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening there, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up. All that stuff definitely helps. Let's get into the mailbag because it goes across many different spectrums. I want to talk about Cal Poly in one of the questions. So Patrick says, hey, Coach Taylor, how unique is game planning for Cal Poly at the Big West tournament compared to past years where you would play teams you've already played, unlike this year? Also, if you beat Cal Poly, is there an advantage to having a game under your belt in Vegas and a rest day before playing UCI?
Yeah. I'll answer the first question, the last part of that question first. Yeah, I think there is an advantage because you have played in the venue, so to speak, a venue that you've never played in before. And so you kind of get comfortable, or you're familiar, I shouldn't say comfortable, you get familiar with, something as simple as where the shot clock is, something as simple as where the big clock is and where the scoreboard is, and checking in, and getting used to the depth perception and all of those things. You have that under your belt, so to speak, and I don't want to say comfortable, you are familiar with it, and so you know where to look, and as the shot clock's winding down, you know where to look, and all those things. And so that, I think that's really, really important. And so that answers that question. Yeah, it's super important, something as simple as, knowing where your locker is, knowing how to get to the court and doing those things. I think it's really, really important from that aspect. And then preparing for a team that you haven't played, I think it's unique Obviously, we're under the COVID protocol, and we didn't get a chance to play Cal Poly, but it is unique, and it's because it's such a short window of preparation. So we played Saturday night. We got home Saturday night about, I don't know, about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And basically we left again, or we reconvened at 2:30 to start testing on Sunday. And then we left right after we got the testing back. And so we really only had 2 days to prepare for Cal Poly. And so it's kind of a hurried up job, if you will, but we you rely on what you do. Yeah, Cal Poly is going to do this and they're going to do that, but I think it's more important to learn or to know what you do and try to do that well, and understand their personnel. I think that's really, really important, and understand how they score and understand how they defend and all those things. But I think it's really important that you focus on what you do, because as much time as you want to spend on Cal Poly, if you don't take care of business and doing what you do and bringing what you bring to the table, what Cal Poly does is irrelevant. It's all your fault.
What's it going to be like facing up against John in the first round?
Obviously it's always emotional from a standpoint of it's someone you spent years building Cal State Fullerton with, and now you look down and he's on the opposing sideline, and so yeah, it's an emotional deal. But I think you have two competitors that when the ball goes up, both of us will be trying to win the game, and then after the game we'll continue to be friends and do what we do. Before the game last night, he and I got in a corner, and sure, we held up, and I think it was probably 1 or 2 in the morning before we left each other, and we had a great time, But I think the game itself, it's super competitive, but at the end of the day, I love him. He helped Cal State Fullerton be what Cal State Fullerton is, and there's nothing you can do about that. You can't take that away from And so we were reminiscing on some things that we had gone through together, and some of the things that he's going through, and some of the things that I'm going through, and in our respective programs. And so the conversation is different now. It's not head coach to assistant, it's head coach to head coach. And so the understanding is different, and the perspective is completely different, and it's appreciated on both ends. And not that we didn't appreciate it when it was happening before, but I think it's something different, and it changes the level of the level of the conversation, and it just changes the relationship. Just it helps by the way we knowing each other. He can look at me and say, "Oh, he's pissed." And I can look at him and say, "Oh, he's really excited." That's a given. But now we're looking at each other and saying, "I understand because you're a head coach. Yeah. You're dealing with head coaching problems." And so it's just a little bit of a different conversation, if you will.
That's awesome. Do you, when you play against someone like him, do you wish you're playing against a different opponent in the first round, or do you think it means maybe a little extra to play against a friend?
No, it doesn't. It's because it's a friend. It's kind of that damned if you do, damned if you don't. Mm-hmm. You hate to see, your friend lose, and you hate to be the cause of it. But don't get it twisted. He's going to be excited if he gets a chance to advance, and I want him to be, and vice versa. And so no, it's kind of a gift and a curse, so to speak, just simply because, and obviously we know each other very, very well, like stuff that he does, we do the same thing, and so it's going to be interesting.
I'm going to go to a question from Tim Vincent, our dude.
Right.
And he's got one that I'm actually really excited that he asked about, and has nothing really to do with the tournament. He said, "Best of luck in the tournament this week. Looking forward to seeing the team in person next year. Really missed the games this season at Titan Gym. Anyways, my favorite player during your tenure was Trey Coggins." Hey, Tim, guess what? That was when I was back at Cal State Fullerton too, broadcasting games.
No doubt.
It's such a quiet but incredible shooter and scorer. My wife's favorite player was Lionheart Leslie. Hey, guess what, Tim? That's my wife's favorite player too. He had so much energy and heart on the court. Can you tell me how both are doing and what they're doing now? Also, maybe something you most remember or hold special about each of these young men. Thanks, Coach.
That's an awesome question, and it makes you feel good just simply because the fans are relating to our players, so to speak, in the relationship. Like everybody wants to know what 100 wins means. Well, you just described it by that question. our fans are connecting and they're relating to our players as real people and they care about them and vice versa. You know, I think both of them, the last time I talked to them, and I have not done a great job of staying in touch with them, but I believe Trey is still playing overseas in Spain somewhere. Lionheart, he's kind of up and down in terms of playing. He's hurt, he's playing, he's not playing, you know, so he's kind of got that pro experience, so to speak, you know, but he's back home with his family in Homa. The last I spoke to him, he was going home. He was here at our place working out, doing his thing, and then he was heading back home. And so I would say the most the thing that's interesting that I can say is that they both come from different spectrums, like polar opposite. Trey's very well polished, very, very well put together. And, you know, he's a nice, young, wholesome dude, right? And Lionheart, I mean, he is as backwater country and just, I mean, he don't care. Roll up his sleeves, step in the mud. He just wants to get the job done, you know? And so if you know much about Lionheart, he's deaf in one of his ears. He can only hear. I think he's lost 80% at birth, 80% of his hearing. And so to watch Trey and Lionheart communicate, because they both needed each other to perform at their respective levels. But watching those two guys communicate, I could hear, and I couldn't hear him. I could see Lionheart say, "Hey Trey, speak in this ear," you know, like that type of stuff. And you know, just the way that their relationship, you know, on the floor and their relationship off the floor, they were two totally different people coming from two totally different worlds, but they came together for a commonality, and that is to win some basketball games. And they started us off. You know, they were part of the team that is our first postseason appearance was simply because of those two. And so we're really fond of them and their experience and appreciative, because Trey transferred from Air Force and there were many suitors. Same thing with Lionheart. You know, he transferred from a junior college, Blinn Junior College, and there were many suitors, but they both chose Cal State Fullerton for various reasons. But they were able to come together and I think produce something that will never be able to, you'll never take it away from them in terms of the history that they created through their experience.
Yeah, that was a great question. I'm glad you asked that, Tim, because
Yeah.
I was talking about old players. We said we're going to be doing that during the off season, so
No
it's
doubt.
nice there. So we're able to hit on Vegas, we're able to hit on Cal Poly, able to hit on some other stuff. I mean, it's a crazy week, man. It's really a crazy week. You got Cal Poly. Hopefully, we're able to get this episode out before you guys take them on. But we were able to talk a little bit about UCSD and Vegas. We do have one last question, and I'll tell you who it comes from after I ask the question.
Uh-oh.
How soon after your final game will you be coming to see us?
Oh man, seriously, I cannot wait. As soon as the final buzzer happens, I'm gonna be making plans to get down there and see you guys as soon as I possibly can. That will make my heart happy. That will truly make my heart happy. Getting to see them, I haven't seen them in forever because of COVID. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's awesome. That's what I wanted to end the podcast on, man. And that's just, it's great. And to get Dedrique Taylor to cry a little bit, and you know what, his daughters mean everything to him. So
that's not fair. You knew that.
To have that note get sent. When I saw that, I opened up the email, opened up the inbox right before we started recording. I saw that one. I'm like, oh, I'm saving that for last. That's great. So
that's not fair. You knew I was going to do that. You knew that.
Your two daughters.
They do that to me.
Hey, of course, and as they should. So it puts everything into perspective, going way back to episode number 1. And you still got basketball, of course. Family is always going to be number 1, but basketball for sure is on the mind. And you got motivation to go out there and win for them. And so best of luck this week, man.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it, and looking forward to it. We'll get this out tomorrow. You know, before we play, I'll get Zooey on it, and we'll get it out so that the people can hear what we have to say, and more importantly, hopefully we can do what we're supposed to tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to this group and this environment and having an opportunity. This is win or go home time. This is put up or shut up. And so I'm anxious to see this group and how they respond, especially coming off of the weekend that we had down in San Diego and where their mindset is. I think they're all in the right frame of mind, and they quickly turn the page. And so we'll see what we can get done. But I'm really, really anxious for them to get out on the court tomorrow.
And we'll be back next week. We'll chat about Vegas and what happened there. Hopefully we're chatting about NCAA tournament appearance. But we'll be back next week. And remember, you can always rate, review the podcast wherever you listen. If you can give us a thumbs up on YouTube, that's awesome. Subscribe on iTunes, whatever it is. dtaylorcoachesshow@gmail.com is always the way you can reach us. He's the head coach of Cal State Fullerton. I am Brandon Marcus. Until next time, have a good one, everybody.
No doubt. We'll see you. Peace.